Good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square. And joining me, as always, on Tuesday morning is Edwin Eisendrath. He hosts It's the Democracy Stupid right here in Lincoln Square on Friday afternoons. He is a former Chicago alderman, former CEO of the Chicago Sun-Times, and he also hosts the program on Heartland Signal, also named It's the Democracy Stupid, and you can catch that online or on Chicago radio on the weekends. Edwin, thank you so much for being here.
You know, it's one of my favorite times of the week, Susan.
We've got a lot to get into today. I think that one story that has already kind of been kicked off of the major headlines is that Trump actually made 3,700 stock trades in just the first quarter of this year. And that was for a lot of deals that he had inside information for. We know that he was trading in companies like Amazon and Microsoft before the Pentagon announced agreements with them, with NVIDIA, which the US now owns shares of. That's just a staggering amount of trades. And Edwin, what I want to ask you is, you and I know how obscenely corrupt this is and what a break this is from past presidents. I mean, famously, Jimmy Carter put his peanut farm in a trust before he became president. Donald Trump is just off the charts with ripping us off on a daily basis. I know that a lot of people are upset about this, but there is a contingent of Americans that think that all politicians are just robbing us blind and all politicians are doing this. So how are we able to make the case about just how absolutely unhinged and corrupt this guy is and how it's hurting us all?
Donald Trump belongs in jail. He is a criminal. He is a thief. And he is gaming the system for his own personal profit. No one has done this in the office of the presidency. No one. People who say, oh, it's just both sides, are doing Donald Trump a favor. They want to have no faith in democracy, no faith in elected officials, and just go, my crook is better than your crook. You know what? I was in the Chicago City Council where there actually were crooks. And people went to jail in big numbers, and yet there were others who did the job and did it well. Yeah. And my city is better for their service. It's the same thing in the country. We've had honorable presidents of both parties, and we've had presidents who have understood, even if we disagree with them, that the people's business is not their personal business. That is not true for Donald Trump, whose hand is in your pocket and mine to steal money for himself and his family. It's disgusting. And here's my dog in the background. Sorry about that. It's not just his greed. These trades, he made these trades on the run up to his trip to China. And then he took those CEOs to China to try and make them deals. So it wasn't just insider information. He literally was trying to move the market after he made the trades to make them better. All of it is illegal. Of course, this Justice Department does not care about the rule of law. Otherwise, they would have taken action. It's absolutely illegal. But zoom out. The Democrats didn't give us tariffs. They didn't tear down part of the White House for a ballroom. They didn't invade Iran. They didn't dismantle scientific research. They didn't remove Alex Haley's roots from Knox County, Tennessee's schools. You know what? They didn't pay companies to dismantle windmills and reinvest in fossil fuels. The list is huge. We didn't abandon Ukraine. We didn't diss NATO. We didn't give huge tax breaks to the wealthiest people around the world. We didn't lie to federal judges in court. This is on Donald Trump and his party. And anybody who says everybody is guilty is lying to themselves and doing a disservice to the nation.
And we also know that Donald Trump has a new slush fund out there, cutely to the tune of $1.776 billion. And this trust fund is for the J6ers that try to overthrow our democracy. And that Donald Trump and his cronies were egging on in various ways. And Donald Trump was asked about this at a recent press conference. I think we have that footage.
Question on weaponization. Do you believe that people who committed violence against Capitol Hill police officers on January 6th should be eligible for compensation from this DOJ fund? And are you or your family members going to be seeking compensation from that fund?
It'll all be dependent on a committee. A committee's being set up of very talented people, very highly respected people. I think it's a committee of 5. And again, I didn't do this deal. It was told to me yesterday. They said they're doing something. I do believe there has to be compensation for people that were destroyed. You have families absolutely destroyed, and it's all going to be determined by a committee of 4 or 5 people that are respected and very brilliant at what they do. Yeah, please. Go ahead, please.
There are no words. 4 or 5 people that he can fire are going to dole out your taxpayer dollars, the money that you send to the federal government to give to Stuart Rhodes, to give to Enrique Tarrio, to give to people who actually beat police officers over the head and then, by the way, were subsequently convicted of child molestation. He wants to pay off his stormtroopers, the folks who are the vigilantes out there in the country doing extra legal intimidation of people he doesn't like everywhere. The ones who are sending pizzas in the name of the dead son of a judge to federal judges saying, we know where you live and we know where your children live. And he wants to give them your money and mine. I mean, Susan, look, the good news is that Americans see this and they hate it. I mean, Donald Trump's poll numbers, they're worse than ever. And they're worse not because Democrats have figured out we don't like him, right? Because we knew that going in, but because anybody who's possible to persuade has been persuaded that this man is a danger to us and to the world. I mean, even here you are. I mean, even people who typically don't vote, the ones who don't read the New York Times here, don't listen to shows like this, they know from their own lives that this man is a disaster. And we see it in real time, and we're going to keep seeing it. I mean, the horrible thing about this fund is it is a crime. I mean, look, it is a federal program to give money to a certain group of people for a certain reason, right? He does not get to launch a federal program. That's Congress's job.
Right.
Right. But once again, he's deciding how to spend the taxpayers' money because he thinks it's his. And the Justice Department wants to make it his. And Congress, the Republicans in Congress, want to make it his. They want this dictatorship, and we can't let them. And Americans won't let them. But it's going to be something like this every day. This is terrible. We had something terrible to talk about last week. We had something terrible to talk about the week before. No one is safe while these monsters are in power.
Yeah. Well, let's back up a little bit about how we got this latest slush fund. And that grew out of the fact that Donald Trump sued the government that he presides over for $10 billion. He sued the IRS because his tax returns, some of them, not all of them, were leaked during the course of the 2016 campaign. And he saw this as yet another money-making opportunity for him. However, his case did not go very well in the courts. And I would urge everybody to read a fabulous column by Frank Figluzzi, former associate director of the FBI, who hosts a show with us on Lincoln Square. It's right here on Lincoln Square today, where he goes through the court case and the history and how we got here. And the minute that a judge saw this case, clearly started to poke holes in this and rather go through a very embarrassing discovery process, Donald Trump decided to settle this, and to the tune of $1.8 billion, $1.776 billion, because of course, what this is really about is trying to rewrite history of January 6th, where suddenly it's not what most of us understand it to be. It was an attempted coup. It was an attempt to do an end run around our democracy in a fair and free election that Donald Trump lost. And I don't think we could say those words enough. Donald Trump lost that election, and nothing drives him crazier than to be reminded of that simple fact. And since Donald Trump has gotten back into office in 2025, most of his time has been devoted to trying to rewrite that history. And this bribe fund is just the latest way that he is trying to take care of the people who committed crimes in his name, and to convince us all that something was stolen from him and that he didn't really lose that election.
And let's be clear about this. It's not a settlement, really. Let's be clear about what it is, because we've seen this pattern before. We saw it with General Flynn. Donald Trump and his allies sue the government. They lose, or they are about to lose. They cannot win their case. So the crooked Justice Department and Donald Trump say, well, let's not even bother with the court. Let's not even bother with the case. We'll just give you the money and call it a day. We'll call it a settlement. But in fact, they aren't defending America. It's not what we normally have in a court, which are two parties in a dispute really disputing, and sometimes they agree to settle the difference. We have the two parties are on the same side, and they're just agreeing about how best to carve up you and me for their own benefits. It's absolutely corrupt as can be. It's the most egregious violation of the rule of law maybe ever in our country. Maybe ever. It's hard to come up with any. Maybe Andrew Jackson ignoring the Supreme Court for the Trail of Tears. That we're at that level of we don't care what the law is. We're going to do whatever we want. And even then, as horrible and as genocidal as that was, it wasn't him personally lining his own pocket. This is just greed and grift and absolutely disgusting.
Well, and I would make the case that with Trump's ICE policies, with his deportation agenda, and the fact that ICE is building warehouses all across the country to house people in the most inhumane fashion, that he is taking a page from those incredibly horrible and corrupt policies like that of Andrew Jackson. He's doing that on one hand, while on the other, he's picking our pockets on the daily. I mean, every week we could just devote this show to all the different new ways that the Trump administration, that Trump himself, his family, and his allies are stealing from us. Because last week we talked about the reflecting pool and how that was a grift for his old contractor to turn it the color of a toilet. Yeah.
So look, this is, again, it's going to happen as long as he's in power and as long as Republicans are in power in Congress. This is the government they want. It's not the government America wants. So we were hoodwinked in the election. They lied throughout the election about important things. But again, not only is America turned on them, but there's a real challenge here. Minnesota now has a nationwide warrant out for an ICE officer. I mean, remember, this was the case, everybody, where, remember, there was a car driving down the road and ICE stopped them and they were scared. They called 911 because they were worried. And the ICE officer jumped out of his car and shoved the gun in the faces of the people in the car, terrified them. And he's been charged with assault for that. And he hasn't turned himself in. ICE hasn't commented about where he is or what they're going to do. There's a nationwide warrant, and we're going to see whether the rule of law holds and whether a warrant from one state will be respected by others, or whether whether this crisis deepens. And I suspect the crisis will deepen. We have a terrible constitutional mess that's going to require the next Congress to have James Madison's in it to figure out how we rein in the corruption of our courts, particularly the Supreme Court, and to secure us from federal government violence and to secure our right to vote and make these decisions. I mean, the attack on the Voting Rights Act is also just so heartbreaking and disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of accountability, we don't have to wait for the next president. A great way to get some of that accountability is if we have a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate in 2027 who can start to hold these investigative hearings. They have subpoena power. A lot more of what Trump is doing will be known to us if we have a Congress that decides to actually do its job.
I believe that's true, although I fully expect, Susan, for every member of the administration to refuse to honor the subpoenas and the Justice Department to refuse to prosecute those who violate the law and don't honor them. These are crooks. These are lawless autocrats who do not believe in the oath they swore to uphold the law. And they will do everything they can to steal us blind and to make America weak in the world. This is what I really don't understand. Why would they do I mean, this China trip, complete, utter disaster for the United States. And how, Iran, disaster. I mean, beyond a disaster for the United States. And it leaves you speechless, but somehow that chaos creates room for them to line their own pockets more. After all, the kids are defense contractors now.
Right, right. Yeah, we now have Trump going back to threaten Iran with annihilation. Now he's saying that talks are going well. I'm not aware that talks have been going on for quite some time, but I know the president was asked about this very recently in that press conference. I think we have that footage.
Post on Truth Social on Iran, and what was the decision that why you didn't attack Iran?
Well, other countries have come to me and they've said we were getting ready to do a very major attack tomorrow. I've put it off for a little while, hopefully maybe forever, but possibly for a little while, because we've had very big discussions with Iran, and we'll see what they amount to. I was asked by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and some others if we could put it off for 2 or 3 days, a short period of time, because they think that they are getting very close to making a deal. And if we can do that where there's no nuclear weapon going into the hands of Iran, I think, and if they're satisfied, we will be probably satisfied also.
So, Edwin, my personal theory on why we started to hear this saber rattling from Trump again on Iran after he seemed completely bored of this war for like the last month is he knows that he didn't come out of this China summit looking that great. There was, I mean, you had President Xi who was basically saying, this is now going to be the Chinese century. You're the old superpower. We're the new. Trump looked extremely weak coming out of that summit. And I think that Trump was looking to prove his dominance with doing these late night tweets about bombing Iran again, because fundamentally there's nothing that this guy hates more than looking weak, and he knows that he is.
Absolutely. Look, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I probably believe him that all the Gulf nations said, stop it. Don't do this again. I mean, a nuclear power plant was nearly hit. I mean, Iranian attack landed very near a nuclear power plant in the UAE. Very frightening, very frightening. So they don't want this war. They didn't want it to begin with. And I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of the world were negotiating a peace there without us. And then they say, we've made a deal. You guys go home. You know, I mean, right. China and Iran and the Gulf states, they figure out what they need. They make their deal and they say, America, go home. And the Strait reopens. But the Trump administration, their lies are so, I have no words for the way they lie. Today they're saying we control the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah,
really? Seriously? So how come the ships aren't flowing?
We've got a clip of that from Peter Navarro, who just went on Newsmax and talked about that.
Right. Look at what we've done too, Rob. Venezuela, Chinese are out of there. Cuba, out of there. That's the Don Road Doctrine. And the United States military right now controls the Strait of Hormuz, which means it controls the supply of oil, not just to China, but to the entire East, okay? The Far East, as they used to call it. So
you're making there's some big progress.
Okay, Susan, it's all lies.
Yeah.
It's just all, and I mean, where's he getting his information? From Pete Hegseth, who, by the way, in the middle of this war, is taking time off to go campaign in Kentucky for their primary today?
Right.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's just unimaginable how they lie like this and think that the rest of the world or Americans aren't going to notice. The price of oil, the price of gas is not something you can just pretend isn't high. Right. Americans see it every day. And so he says, oh, we control it? Well, great. Do something about it, Peter.
Yeah.
Donald, if you control it, bring the prices down today, like you said you would on day one, 360 days ago or whatever that was.
Yeah. Well, these blatant lies, I think, are just part of the Trump administration strategy where they want to be in charge of our reality. And they are for 30% of the population, the Trump diehards, the dead enders that will buy anything that they say. But to your point, for the 70% of us that are in touch with reality and we go to the gas station, we're well aware of the price of gas and what has happened under Donald Trump. And no amount of rhetoric can really change the facts on the ground and what's coming out of our bank accounts. But this is a clear strategy of theirs. And again, I just want to make the point that, for kind of the double haters out there, people who hate both parties and they're sick of politics as usual, and they think that all politicians are crooks. Before Donald Trump, politicians would lie. Lying was not invented by Donald Trump. But the way that people would lie, it would be my budget is I'm going to spend $1.2 billion on this. And it was really $1.5 billion. There were some explicit lies, and usually politicians would get called out, whether it's from the media or from attack ads from their opponents, and there was accountability, and there was a general sense that the American public would not tolerate that kind of blatant lying. And there are plenty of politicians who have gone down for lying. Donald Trump totally changed the game, where if you look at the lies he told in 2015 when he came down that golden escalator, they're almost quaint compared to what comes out of his mouth in a 2-minute stretch in any given press conference during his second term. The lies are so big. The corruption is so great. And he has pushed it to the point that there are a lot of people, there's a whole generation of Americans, of Gen Z, who thinks this is just what politics are. This is just what people do. And there will be a post-Trump moment. He won't be around forever. He's turning 80 in a few weeks. We know this. But how do we come back from this, Edwin, when you have a singular politician that has now pushed his party and lying like this, telling you that black is white and white is black? That is just a strategy for the Republican Party. And how do we survive as a country if one party is just committed to telling us complete bullshit all the time?
Well, my thoughts about that have evolved. I believe the Republican Party will not survive. It has become the party of Donald Trump. We see that. We saw that in Indiana. We saw it, within a Senate race last week. The party is who he wants it to be, right?
Bill Cassidy lost his primary in Louisiana over the weekend.
Right. And if Massey loses in Kentucky today, which is, 50-50, whether he wins or loses, he represents some piece of the Republican Party that isn't Trump's, but that's increasingly disappearing. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump is not popular, and he's not got anything like a governing majority. So I think we could use different, it's going to get complicated here, but we could use proportional representation. We could use multi-member districts. We could do all kinds of things to take some of the bile out of partisan politics that's poisoned the country. And I want to, that's probably a whole different conversation, but we will need to think about how we restructure the way we do politics so it doesn't create these partisan identities that people hate. But to those who hate them, I want to say this. You may hate the Democrats. You may hate what you see Donald Trump doing. You may think everybody's to blame. Every politician is to blame. And then I just want to say to you, it's not the Democrats' job to save your democracy. It isn't. It is not. That's not what political parties do. Political parties organize primaries. They have some candidates they like. They go out and raise money. They set up debate schedules. If you want to save the democracy, you have to do it. It's up to you. It's up to each of us. That's why it says we the people. It doesn't say we the Democrats or we the Republicans. Political parties are a tool of an organized power, but that's not that. It's Chuck Schumer. Whatever you think of him, he's not going to save the democracy for you. You have to save the democracy for you. So hold your nose, get out there and vote if that's what you want to do. But I don't suggest, I mean, I think there are great candidates running all over the country. And in districts where Democrats have never fielded candidates, they're running. So go look at them, go talk to them, go ask about your future, go talk about the ideas that are out there, because all over the country, we Democrats, but people who are Democrat aligned, they're not really party members. They're certainly not the same thing as the party in DC, right? It's a bottoms up thing that's happening. It's kind of changing what the Democrats look like. They're out there representing their communities, and they love their communities. And that's why you can have, people as diverse as Zoran Mamdani, who seems to fit the moment in New York, and Mickey Sherrill, who is very different, who fits the, and not that far away, but fits a very different population, because people are paying attention to the voters and to the communities they represent. And you're part of that. Yeah. So this is the proud piece of being an American is still alive and well. You just don't see it when you listen to those lying bastards in the White House all the time.
Yeah. And I was really heartened to see over the weekend that there were so many people who showed up to the All Roads Lead to the South rally in Montgomery, Alabama, to protest the extreme gerrymandering that this Supreme Court has now allowed under the Clay decision. This was not a Democratic Party rally. This was a rally of people who are concerned about our democracy, about our voting rights being under attack. And it was great to see the turnout of people that were coming together as they did back in the 1960s. Sadly, we are now fighting those battles again.
Yeah. I went to Operation Rainbow Push for their rally here. Look, you and I talk about this as an attack on voting rights, but it is also an attack on Black America. It is an attack that is unprecedented certainly since the 1950s. It is this white nationalist thing, this let's bring in the Afrikaners, 10,000 more of them from South Africa, and let's push everybody else out. There is in the party in power an effort to stay in power by making a race war in the United States. Right? I mean, they just want white America to hate everybody else and to be afraid of them.
Yeah, if you look at the propaganda that comes out of the Department of Homeland Security's Twitter account, it is indistinguishable from white nationalist sites. Yep.
And well, because it is a white nationalist site. Let's be honest about that. But what they don't understand is that most of white America doesn't want that race war. Most of us want to get along with everybody who lives here, and we want to move forward together. It's not lost on Americans that, oh, God almighty, pick your group, but Black Americans have contributed mightily to America, not just with the labor that was squeezed from the Black community, but from their brains. I mean, one of the doctors who figured out the vaccine that got rid of COVID was a Black woman, right? I mean, the contributions to our society, we are so much better off when everybody gets to contribute in this ship we're in. So much better off, so much wealthier, so much, there's so much more fun in an America that is big and diverse and interesting. And these guys hate it. They hate it. Yeah. They hate it. And by the way, their hatred is not limited to people of color. They have a very bizarre idea about what women ought to do in America.
Yes. Yeah, which is, stay home and pump out babies.
Yes, and not vote.
Because the head of the household should have the vote.
Yeah. I mean, this is just so repellent, and so like every American should just in their core be disgusted by these people. Yeah. And I think Americans increasingly are. No one wants to hate the president of the United States in America, right? He got elected. We want to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's hard to do the second time, but he hasn't earned it for 1 minute. He's never tried to be your president. He's never tried to be my president. He certainly isn't interested in being the president of anybody who isn't white. He just isn't interested. He is at war with them. He doesn't want them here. He's clear about that. And he's willing to use the full force of the executive branch to try and resort America into into communities that they could be separate and unequal again. I mean, we do not want that. We warned everybody, you and I, and a lot of people warned everyone who could listen that this is what was going to happen. Okay?
Yeah.
We read Project 2025. We knew this was going to happen. They said, oh, no, what is that? I don't know what that is. They lied.
Yeah.
And they continue to lie, and they continue to do this damage to us and to the whole world. So you ask how we come out of it, we'll come out of it. And we will make changes that strengthen our democracy. I mean, we can't do it with the Supreme Court because they are a partisan group of hacks, but we do need a Supreme Court that is legitimate, and we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, in addition to the race war that this administration clearly is trying to foment, they have some really powerful allies with tech billionaires. I mean, a few weeks ago, Palantir came out with their manifesto where they were lauding Western culture, that it's superior to other culture. You have Elon Musk that bought Twitter. And literally, if you go to the For You tab in your account, if you still have an account there, which, many of us do not, you will get a steady stream of racial violence to try and whip people up into a frenzy. I mean, really, it is like a digital Klan rally on there every day. And Elon Musk, of course, famously, was part of the Trump administration. He's the force behind Doge, which cut our government to ribbons. That's why, Doge cut a lot of the funding that could be very helpful right now during another Ebola outbreak, during the hantavirus outbreak. A lot of our resources have been cut there. But Elon Musk is a great ally to the president's completely racist agenda. And social media companies, these tech companies, they have enormous influence over the information that we all consume. And so, tragically, what we saw at the San Diego Islamic Center yesterday, where there was a shooting and 3 adults were killed, both teen suspects are dead. That's the kind of thing that, sadly, I don't think surprises us, because there is so much hatred out there. There are so many powerful people that are spreading incredibly damaging ideas, Islamophobia, racism. And, Edwin, just a couple months ago, you and I were talking about a synagogue shooting that was averted just an hour away from me in West Bloomfield.
Right.
And these things, I think, we can't say that they are happening in isolation, because they're not.
No, look, America's hurting. America's in a crisis. It's a crisis that has a cause, and that cause is coming from fomented by the right wing. We have had some intemperate rhetoric on our side, but nothing like this fire hose of nonsense and violence and vitriol and race-based targeting on the right. Social media is a new thing in humanity, and it's going to take us some time to figure out how to get used to it, how to deal with it. I think but you look again, I take comfort in the polls. I take comfort in the election results, that notwithstanding the overwhelming force of the right wing in controlling the media environment, in making sure that lies are as common as air, right? And on everybody's phone, that reality is intervening, and people are going, wait a minute. I mean, you said this, but I'm seeing armed thugs on my street pushing people around. I'm seeing my neighbors getting attacked. I'm seeing people who beat up police officers getting my tax dollars from a slush fund that the president has established. I'm seeing religious leaders bow down and pray in front of a golden statue of this man. I'm seeing the White House torn down, and I'm seeing America put to shame in the world by Vladimir Putin on a red carpet in Alaska, and by President Xi, who put the president in a shorter chair just to insult him, in the Great Hall of the People. So, right, this is just, by the way, what American president goes to China and I have a lot of respect for China, but it is not a free country.
No.
It is a completely surveilled nation where if you're a Uyghur, you are in a work camp, right? It is not free. What American president goes to China and never mentions the word freedom? And oh, by you conservative Republicans who used to care about that stuff, you used to care about that stuff. Don't ever lecture anybody on the left. Don't even try.
Well, I do need to talk about probably the story that raised my blood pressure the most this week. And that was Democratic Governor Jared Polis commuting the sentence of an election denier, Tina Peters, who actively tried to subvert the 2020 election, which Donald Trump lost. She was one of the very few people who actually has been convicted in these crimes, because I covered the Trump plot to overturn the election here in Michigan, another key swing state. And most of the operatives, most of the clerks have gotten away with what they've done. They've dragged out these hearings for years and years, waiting for, Trump to pardon them or intervene or run out the clock. And that's because our criminal system, our election system, wasn't built to safeguard against these kinds of threats to the democratic process. Naively, we did not think that we would have a sitting president try and foment a coup in this country, and our laws have not kept up with that. And so to see a Democratic governor let Tina Peters skate to curry favor with this corrupt president, so maybe he doesn't go after Colorado the way he has gone after Minnesota, for instance. I mean, once again, Trump and his allies, they break the law, and once again, they get away with it. And I really worry about this, because that's what gets people to tune out from politics and from trying to save our democracy, because people think that the system is too broken to change. And we cannot let it be too broken to change. We can't let that congeal.
Yeah. So Tina Peters isn't just an election denier. She was convicted of letting people at the voting machines themselves to try.
Mike Lindell, the MyPillow guy.
Right. To go in and futz with the voting machines.
Right.
It's an absolute crime. We do have the laws for it. She was convicted. She was sentenced to jail. She became a cause for Donald Trump, and Donald Trump illegally withheld funds to the state of Colorado that state needs because she was in jail. Right. I don't know why Jared Polis, the governor of Colorado, he didn't pardon her. He said, no, she committed the crime, but he commuted her sentence. And I don't know why.
He's trying to make this argument that it was a free speech issue. And
if he believed that, he would have pardoned her. Right? No, she was guilty. And maybe he's guilty of the same thing that the law firms have been guilty of. Maybe he just caved to the illegal pressure coming from an out of control executive branch. That's possible. And that would mean this, that the list of entities that have caved to this man are law firms and universities and now a state, right? A state. The Donald Trump has power, no question, and he's using it, and people are falling. I mean, it's like looking at a war and you see, like, okay, well, that country's gone. Now, I would have thought that our stronger institutions would have held a little bit longer, but they were too eager to dance with the devil. So, big law firms, okay, and their case is coming due right now in court. So that'll be very interesting. But, I'm proud of Harvard. They're holding up under unbelievable pressure, but others have caved, shamelessly caved. Brown, powerful, strong, Columbia, wealthy, powerful organizations folded like Skadden and these big law firms did. And now you can add Joe Polis to the list for whatever reason. Does not help America. But Susan, it goes back to what you and I have always known, that the democracy is going to be saved by ordinary people.
Right.
It's not going to be saved by the rich and powerful. And the rich and powerful, once we save it, are going to go, oh, thank God you did that. You don't know the pressures we were under. Oh, you've saved us. And I hope we have the balls to say to them, when we needed you, you weren't there, and we're not forgetting.
I thought we were going to get an F-bomb from you.
No, you're going to get a T-bomb. They're finally going to pay the taxes they need to pay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, last week I had the pleasure of talking with Angelo Corsone from Media Matters for America, who won a really significant case against the Federal Trade Commission that went after them. And, as this administration has gone after so many media companies, so many media outlets, so many reporters, but Media Matters stood up, and they knew that caving was not an option. They knew that the Trump administration very badly wanted to put them out of business because their entire media operation is about holding the right-wing media and right-wing officials accountable. And if there's one thing that this administration hates, it's being held accountable. But unlike
the other thing is truth. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is also what we're supposed to do in the media. But unlike major companies like CBS and ABC that couldn't wait to settle with this administration, Media Matters, this small company, fought them tooth and nail, and not just defensively, but they launched proactive attacks, and they won this lawsuit. It wasn't just settled. It didn't just go away. They made sure to get concessions so that they, could protect themselves from future tampering by this administration.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really inspiring to hear, because the point that Angela made over and over again was, bullies count on you folding, but if you punch them back in the mouth, you're usually going to win. And that's what they did. And I think, we need more companies, we need more outlets like Media Matters now more than ever.
Well, look, I'm glad you went here because it's an optimistic note. And we are seeing seeing more and more of it. I mean, the poll numbers I talked about earlier, the election results we're seeing more and more. But this last week, ABC, which caved early and paid money, actually showed some spine and fought back a little bit.
Right.
There's news that the owners of CBS are putting Barry Weiss on notice that maybe her tenure needs to be rethought a little bit over there. So there's
since she's looking to tear down 60 Minutes, one of the few programs that actually makes money for them.
Right. I mean, look, when you got a president whose poll numbers are as bad as Donald Trump's, when you have a political party that doesn't represent anything but itself in its effort to hold power at all costs, a very un-American thing, because you know what? Power in America belongs to the people, doesn't belong to a political party, never has. When you have that big a difference, it's beginning to show up, and you'll see corporations, you'll see media companies, you'll see them begin to distance themselves a little bit, particularly as they recognize that they aren't going to hold power, that we are going to take it from them in the midterms, and that we are going to kick these terrible people out of the executive branch at the first opportunity we have. And they'll all say, oh, we were on your side all along. We were so hoping this would happen. We were with you. We really were.
Yeah.
It's coming, that revision of the narrative. Yeah. Oh, no, we didn't mean not to hire anybody who's Black or Latino or a woman. Well, we didn't mean to do that. We were forced to do that. Yeah. We remember that.
Yeah. Well, Edwin, thank you again for another great discussion on Tuesday morning. And we will look forward to your show on Friday on It's the Democracy, Stupid.
Thank you.
And I can see your dog in the background, and he's very cute.
Oops. There, his bed. I can't even. There you are. There's Winston. An old dog, old hound.
Nice. Well, thank you again for all of you for joining us. And definitely stay tuned. This afternoon, we'll have Adam Kinzinger on with Frank Figluzzi on his show.
Nice.
You're not going to want to miss that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.